Good morning, everyone. My name is Catherine Lesswing with the Bureau of Student Wellness, and we're here today to talk about some tips for regulating stress. I'm going to let some folks log in, see if I can't post a question for you all in the comments here. There we go with that. And while we're waiting for people to find us, just a couple of reminders per usual. Make sure you've liked us on our Facebook page. If you're watching this, you've probably found it. It's at NH Student Wellness. We're on Twitter at NH Schools, and we have our new remote learning website, www.nhlearnsremotely.com. That's posted in the description of this session for you on the side. We'll be back here again at 3 this afternoon live with myself, Susan, who you've met in these morning chats and afternoon bell sessions, as well as Molly, who you've also met here. And all three of us are going to be on together to talk about how we're managing self-care in our own lives. We've done a lot of offering tips, but we thought we'd just have a more real conversation about what are we actually doing personally and how's that panning out for us. So we hope you'll tune in for that. And then, of course, we'll be back here again at 9 a.m. tomorrow. So happy Wednesday again. My name is Catherine Lesswing. I work for the Bureau of Student Wellness at the New Hampshire Department of Education. Thanks for tuning in to our morning coffee chat this morning. The goal of these sessions is to provide parents, families, educators a place to share what's working, what's not, to get some tips, and really just feel supported on some level right now during the pandemic that's happening. Our coffee chat today is called Youth, Stress, and COVID-19. The stress from physical distancing and the everyday disruption that's been caused by the coronavirus pandemic has been especially hard for youth to process. So the tips that I'm about to offer for you today are from Dr. Bruce Perry, and he offers these for students to help regulate their stress. Really, they work for adults to regulate stress as well. Dr. Perry is the head of Neurosequential Model Network. He is a senior fellow at the Child Trauma Academy, and he's also a professor in psychiatry and behavioral sciences at Northwestern University in Chicago. I have posted the link to his website also in the comments section or in the description of this session on I think it should be on your right-hand side. And so you can find more resources about COVID-19 and stress and trauma on his website. It's neurosequential.com. We do hope these sessions will be as interactive as possible, so please type any questions or comments you have into the box that you see on your page. To get us started, I've posed the question in the comments: how does your behavior change when you feel stressed? I can start with myself. I've definitely been noticing it a little bit more lately since we've all been housebound. And when I feel stressed out, I notice I tend to become I try to control my immediate surroundings more. So I might be trying to arrange the living room just so, or make sure things are extra tidy, whatever it might be. And the first step is really for me to be aware of the fact that I'm doing that. But in order to become better regulated and able to manage stress, we can put into practice some techniques for ourselves and for our children and students. So without further ado, let's get into some tips that can help us manage and regulate stress for ourselves and for our students. The first tip is to call what is occurring physical distancing, not social distancing. We've heard this a lot from our guest speakers who've been talking at the 3 p.m. hour. I hope you've been able to tune into that. But by calling it physical distancing, we're signaling to our students and to ourselves that human contact is more important than ever right now. We need to find ways to stay connected as a family, as friends, and maintain relationships while at a distance. And that's really critical right now. So we're physically distanced, but we can remain socially connected. Number 2 is to create a predictable schedule. Again, hopefully you're not too tired of hearing this this suggestion come at you from probably many different directions. But what a predictable schedule does for students is it gives them a sense of routine and order, and it allows them to feel that their life is not unmanageable. So if there's a predictable schedule every day while remote learning is taking place that they can rely on and fall back on, that gives them a little more space in their brain to be able to handle and process the stress of the unknown of the pandemic. Number 3 is maybe my favorite one on this list, and this comes directly from Dr. Perry. This is how he talked about it. But it's to get regular doses of regulating activities. So regulating activities are exercise, getting out in the fresh air, meditation, even video games. I love that the word doses is used because for me, I sometimes think, oh, I did my walk today, check. What they actually find is that to keep up our ability to manage stress, we should be getting regular doses or short chunks or short little snippets of regulating activities rather than these bigger chunks. So why is that? Our brains actually need that regular reminder and that regular relief from some of these regulating activities, and it builds up our reserve to handle the stress that's coming at us. If I'm awake for 16 hours a day and my 20-minute walk was my one regulating activity, I'm going to have less reserve to tap into than if I had done three 10-minute walks throughout the day. So try to think about using doses of regulating activities. Also, something that he says is that video games, they sometimes get a bad rap, but they really can serve as a regulating activity for students. It can feel comfortable. It's something to focus the mind. And so when done in regulation, video games can be a really great regulating activity for students. Number 4, the unknown is scarier than the known, even when the known is bad. So when we don't know what is going to happen, when we are living in the state of unknown, our imaginations run wild trying to fill in the gaps, using fear to inform us. By helping students understand the predicted course of the virus and helping them process the event, we can help tame their fears and help them to regulate that stress a little bit. So be honest about the reality of what's happening. Be honest that the majority of people, even those who get sick, will be just fine. And that's true for even those in the most vulnerable populations. The statistics say that about 10% of those in the most vulnerable populations will actually succumb to the virus. And so just informing students as much as possible will allow them to frame what's happening. Obviously use it in student-centric language, but having students understand what's happening is going to allow them to manage that fear and stress better. Number 5 is a suggestion that's been coming from all angles, and we've heard it over and over. But to turn off social media, the news, and TV, or at very least limit it. Constant input of this triggering information leaves us in either 2 states. We're fight or flight, and so we're ready to combat it, or we're ready to run away and totally escape in whatever way that looks like, or we are just totally paralyzed with fear. So by turning those off and limiting the input, we're limiting the amount of stressful triggers that we have throughout our day. So in the same way that you're going to do doses of regulating activity to manage the stress, you can do very small doses of media that will allow you to get the news, but not inundate you with stress triggers. And last but not least is to repeat reassuring sound bites often. Dr. Perry calls these cognitive scripts, and I like the idea of these cognitive scripts. So what they are little sound bites that help students self-regulate by giving them truthful, reassuring pieces of information or almost like mantras that they can repeat about the situation when they are getting stressed. So something like, most people will be okay. There are programs to help people who have lost jobs. Physical distancing will end once the virus has been under control. Scientists are working on developing a vaccine. We're working on getting more tests. All these little sound bites that help students realize that there are many, many important people and adults working to help. I hope some of these tips might have been useful. They were definitely useful for me. We would love to hear what's working for you in the comments section if you've been finding ways that have really been helping to regulate your own stress or that of your student. Before we close today, just to review the key practices we went over for your own memory. Number one is that we're trying to call it physical distancing, not social distancing. Two is to create a predictable schedule and environment for students to give them that assurance that they are familiar and have a calm environment. Three, get frequent doses of regulating activities like walks, exercise, a good meal together. Four, talk about the future in a realistic way. Five, turn off the news. And six, repeat reassuring cognitive scripts or sound bites for your learner. Thanks again for tuning in today. Be sure to like us on our social media channels. We'll be back here again live this afternoon for an informal chat about self-care. And as always, please reach out if you need any support. Thanks for listening and take care.